A brand new gift has been added to Lumber Tycoon 2, and today I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about it. This is the 5th gift that has been added this year, and this is going to be a lot more complicated to get than the previous 4 gifts that we've gotten so far. And I'd imagine if we don't get any more in the same location, it will be the hardest to get this year. That said, the bar is pretty low for the amount of effort that it takes to get items in Lumber Tycoon 2, so it's not actually that bad, especially if you follow my lead. So to get the new gift, you're just going to want to make your way over to the tropics biome, and that requires you to hop onto the ferry, which is located behind Waterrest directly at the end of this road. You can see there is a dock here, and sometimes the ferry won't actually be here, and if that is the case, then you're going to have to wait probably anywhere from 1 to I'd say 8 minutes. You probably won't be waiting for the ferry to arrive for more than 8 minutes, I'm sure. But anyways, if you don't have the Super Hoove Game Pass, you're going to have to buy a ticket for 400 lumber bucks. And in order to do that, you're going to want to go up here, talk to Hoover, and you just want to click this button that says I'll buy a ticket. And at any point, you can go ahead and ask Hoover when he next runs. This will tell you how long until he departs, which is actually 8 seconds. So we gotta hop in our truck. You want to make sure that you're seated, otherwise there can be problems. You can very easily fall off of the ferry once it's moving if you're not in a seat, especially once it gets going fast. But anyways, I'll see you once we get to the other side. Alright, so once you get to the other side, this area is the tropics, and there are actually 2 stores over here. One is Link's Logic, which actually doesn't have the new item, so we're just going to ignore Link's Logic. We're just going to want to come over here. It's a little bit hard to see since, of course, there are a lot of trees here. The koa trees are particularly large, but anyways, if you come back here, you can see that there is a large cave here. We're actually going to want to go to the fine arts shop, so this is going to require that you go through the maze. Don't worry though, if you just follow my steps, I'll try to go very slowly once we get to the spot where you actually have to navigate. So yeah, we're just going to want to turn left right here and basically just kind of keep going to this left passage, and then once we get to this point, you're just going to want to wrap around this rock right here. So just keep going around, and then from here it is incredibly easy. You're just going to want to go in the middle passage twice. So you come over here, there should be 3 passages. It's a little bit hard to see right here, it looks like 2, but if you keep going, you can actually see there are actually 3 passages. You want to go in the middle one, and then the second time you see 3 passages, it's gonna be super easy to see because obviously you can just see the shop. You've got some very obvious lights, but anyways, right here you can see we have the brand new gifts right here, which is super awesome. It looks like they are arranged in a smiley face, which is pretty cool. But anyways, these are actually particularly large, is probably the first thing you might notice about them. The box of this new gift is up to my shoulders, and if you include the bow, it's literally as tall as if I didn't have any hats on. It would just be as tall as my head. So yeah, that is to say that this brand new gift is incredibly large, which actually is important to remember. We'll get into why that's pretty important for the resale value, but anyways, let's go ahead and look. We've got the shiny gift of Sweet Sounds is what it's called. It's gonna cost you 8,250 lumber bucks, and in the description it says something inside just can't keep quiet, which is actually very interesting because you can see there are musical notes on this gift right here. There's also other things like a stocking, it looks like, and a wreath and a snowflake, so I don't know how related it is, but considering the title and the description, I'm gonna say it has something to do with making noise. Hopefully it will be useful, but anyways, let's talk about the price a little bit because you might notice that it is 8,000 lumber bucks, which seems pretty expensive. Usually if it gets that expensive, I would say probably steer clear of it because it's going to have a much smaller profit margin In fact, once you get up to like 10 to 20,000, it's a question if you'll even be able to make any profit off of it. At 8,000 though, it's pretty likely. I mean, I do not imagine that this will not be able to make profit for you, so I think it will still be worth stocking up on. But there's actually one more consideration you're going to want to take into account, which is just the size. Alright, so I'm here in the Apton price sheet. You can see we've got a bunch of different items with the prices, and this is actually not going to come in as much handy as it has for the previous gifts that we've went over, because we don't actually know what's going to be in this new gift. I mean, if you look at it, it's not really a retexture of any particular gift, at least from what it looks like. I mean, obviously we've seen this model before. I think this is the exact same model that like the Jingly gift of Jingles used, and also the prismatic gift that we've gotten this year. It's just the exact same, but what's interesting about it is that it is a completely new size, which means that there's probably not going to be something in it that we've gotten before. And just considering the wrapping is so unique, I would say we're also pretty safe saying that there's going to be something new in here, which is so exciting, because so far all of the other gifts that we've gotten so far this year have been just retextures pretty much. The die gift was a little bit less of a retexture, but we can pretty much assume that there's going to be a die in there. With this one though, it's not really easy to make an assumption for what's going to be inside of it, which is going to make it a little bit harder to predict the price. But back to the price sheet, I'm just going to scroll down until I see right here we've got the big gift, which is a very, very large gift. If you've ever seen it in Lumber Tycoon 2, it is bigger than your character, so it is quite large. But you can see that this one resells for 220 to 270,000 lumber bucks. Compare that to how much it sold for originally in Wood R Us in 2016. That was 1,000 lumber bucks. So that is an over 200 times increase, which is an insane profit margin for sure. And see, the reason it resells for so much, and you can also see kind of something similar with the golden gift of Golden Times, that also is a pretty high price for that. But the main reason you can sell one of these big gifts for 200 to 270,000 each is just because of how large they are. And by the way, I'll have a link in the description of this video to a video that goes over where to find this price list and how to use it, what everything means and everything. So definitely check that video out. The thing is, with large gifts, you can only fit so many into a single truckload, which makes it a lot easier to stock up on. As you guys can see, I could just put all of these in my truck, and without even running out of the gifts, I've already managed to make a full truckload. And so that would resell for, if it's similar to the big gift, that would resell for about 1 to 2 million lumber bucks, just this alone. Let's quickly buy all of these and see how much this is gonna cost us. I don't know if I can fit all of these on the counter at once, but I'm gonna try. Okay, there we go. That is all of the gifts on the counter at once. Oh no, I almost made it. But you can see it's only 50,000 lumber bucks. So for that truckload, you would be making quite the profit if you're able to sell a truckload of these for $1 million each. But of course, I'm gonna assume it's gonna go up to 2 million each. I guess it would be a little bit more because that was only 6 items that I was able to buy at once. But yeah, you get the point. Around 50 to 60k for a full truckload of these gifts is not that bad, because you can resell them for 2 million probably. But yeah, the reason these can resell for so much individually, like 200k right there, 200k, just assuming that they sell for something similar to the big gift, they probably will be a little bit cheaper because they're not quite as big. But the reason that they sell for so much, like I said, is because they're so big, and the reason for that is because they're a lot harder to dupe a lot of, because you can only fit so much into a truck, so people won't be able to dupe as many of them at a time, which makes it more of a headache to dupe, which means that the price is going going to be higher. There's going to be more demand because duping won't keep the prices low. I mean, obviously there will still be a lot of duping of this gift, but the thing is, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, so we can expect that these will probably go for a little bit more after they go off sale, of course. And I predict that these will go off sale around Christmas Day or a couple days after Christmas Day, which would be the 27th, probably. I mean, that's when the last gifts went off sale last year. I don't know why I'm buying more. I cannot fit that much in my truck. I mean, I can try. So there's another 50,000. They are pretty expensive to stock up on, I will admit, but I do think you're going to be able to make quite a bit of profit off of them. And it's always a good idea to get them just in case they end up being useful. I mean, obviously don't go too crazy with it because you never know what's going to be inside and what its functionalities will be. But if it's particularly useful, there is a good chance that it will sell for even more. And the reason for that is that people will want it because it's useful. But yeah, I think that's about as much as I can fit into my truck. I'm just going to try to move. I can't move. It might be a good idea to bring like a mega truck down here so you can fit even more of these gifts. I don't know how well they would fit, but I'm sure they would fit fairly decently well, and it might allow you to keep all of the gifts in the truck without them falling out, because I guarantee you I'm going to lose a few of these on my way, and for whatever reason these are not allowing me to move every time I stop. That sucks. Alright, I already lost one, but anyways, I'm gonna quickly show you how to get out of the maze. So I'm just going straight at this point and not going too far. I'm basically just let the walls guide you until there is a turn where it's basically perpendicular. So just keep going straight, basically all the way to this point, and as you guys can see, this is pretty perpendicular. So right here is when you're going to want to turn right, and then if you remember this rock over here, you're going to want to wrap around it, and at that point you are pretty much set. Over here is the ramp, so you can just make your way up this ramp and you are free pretty much at this point, because you could just make your way up the ramp, and this is the exit right here. It's a very long exit, but you can get out, and so far, oh my right as I was about to say that, so far all of the gifts are staying in pretty good. They all fell out. Oops. Alright, let's get these all back into the truck real quick. And yeah, I think the strat in order to stock up on these is probably to have a friend, so you can load up a truck, get it over to the ferry, and then I would say have a friend back at the base spawning trucks, empty trucks, which you can fill up with more gifts, and then the friend can pretty much just leave those trucks on the ferry, and then they will just arrive over here where you can then drive the trucks, fill them up with all of the gifts, and then drive them back up, and then you can put them onto the ferry. Obviously, it's a little bit hard to coordinate that because the ferry leaves without warning. You could have a friend that doesn't have the game pass stay on the ferry so that you can kind of control when it departs, because if you have a friend that doesn't have the game pass, the ferry will not depart if you don't have a ticket. So yeah, that gives you a little bit of control as to when the ferry will depart. Then that friend can either buy a ticket or just get off of the ferry, and the ferry will just start moving. But yeah, now I just gotta wait for the ferry to arrive over here, which is probably gonna take a while. It looks like the ferry's just kind of chilling over on the other side. If you had a friend over there, you could always just have the friend go up and check how long it's gonna take for the ferry to depart. But I'm just chill waiting here. It would have been a good idea to bring 2 long trucks. That way, if I get into a situation where I have to wait for the ferry, I can always just take the other long truck, take it down there, fill up another truckload, and then bring it back up here. Then, like I was saying, once the ferry arrives, you can just get the truckloads onto the ferry and then exchange them for empty truckloads with a friend. That would definitely be a pretty solid way to stock up on these. And yeah, I think it's gonna be worth it to stock up on them for sure. Like I was saying, it is a lot more of a headache to get a bunch of them because you do have to go all the way to the tropics, all the way through the maze and everything to get them. But like I've said, big gifts are big money. And since these are only 8,000 lumber bucks, I mean, it is a pretty high price, but as long as you don't go over 10,000, you're pretty safe. You're very likely to make some profit there. All right, looks like the ferry has arrived. Awesome, let's get this onto the ferry, and I do have the Super Hoof Game Pass, so I do not have to spend the 400 lumber bucks to get all the way over there. For some reason, my car keeps locking. I don't know which gift it is that's locking this, so I'm just gonna jump out and hop back in. I really wish that I brought another long truck. In terms of schedule, it does seem like the items are releasing every other day now, like what I was predicting in my last video. My prediction for the future releases is either that we'll get more gifts every other day now until we run out of gifts or days before Christmas. Either that or the gift releases will accelerate, so we'll have gifts every other day, and then at some point it'll switch to a gift every single day. Those are the two most likely release patterns I see happening. I'm kind of leaning more towards the first idea though, because realistically it would take a lot of gifts to do a release every single day. For the gift releases to accelerate, unless it's very short-lived, it would take a lot. The most gifts we've ever gotten in a year was 10 back in 2018. Last year we got 8, so realistically we probably only have 1 to 5 more gifts coming. 5 gifts might be a little bit too optimistic, but yeah, I'll probably update this schedule next video. Alright, we have made it back to the mainland. Let's get these back to the base safely. And over here we can see the other 4 gifts that we've gotten so far. That's kind of hilarious. The size difference is absolutely astronomical right here. Look at that outlier. Why is it so big? That's crazy. Alright, but yeah, these are the 5 gifts that we have gotten so far. A pretty good lineup. All of these, like I was saying, are pretty much just textures, and we can have a pretty good idea of what's going to be in them, but this one is the first one that it's kind of hard to make an assumption, but we can say based off of its size that it's probably going to go up in price quite a bit after it goes off sale. And by the way, of course, in case you've been trying to open your gifts, you cannot do that until the 25th of December, which is Christmas, so we'll have to wait until then to see what's going to be inside of them. But yeah, I think that's gonna pretty much do it for the new gifts. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss new gifts as they come out, because I'll be making videos every single time a new one comes out. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video once it's out. See ya!